Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
Coming up, his case was at the center of the debate over repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the policy that kept gays from serving openly in the military. Now that Congress and the President have repealed the directive, what's next? I talk with Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach of Mountain Home Air Force Base and take your questions. We'll ask and tell next on Dialogue.
This is done.
Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin. That was President Barack Obama 1 month ago as he finished signing a bill repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The policy, developed by President Bill Clinton's staff in 1993, had kept gays from serving openly in the military. My guest tonight was in the audience as President Obama signed the repeal. In 2008, Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach of Mountain Home Air Force Base was outed by a private civilian as being gay. Because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the Air Force initiated discharge proceedings against Fehrenbach, who had already served 17 years in the military. The recipient of numerous medals, including an Air Medal for heroism, Colonel Fehrenbach grew up in an Air Force family and had flown combat missions over Iraq, Afghanistan, and the former Yugoslavia. But this was a different kind of fight, and he wasn't quite sure what to do. Ultimately, Colonel Fehrenbach decided to go public with his case, very public as we'll hear, and challenge the situation. It was not part of his life's flight plan, so to speak, and it was a trip that took more than 2 years. But ultimately, Fehrenbach and others like him hit their target, watching as Congress repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and the President signed the bill. The policy is still on the books, though, until the President, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff certify that the change won't hurt troop readiness, unit cohesion, and recruitment. So what's next? And what are your thoughts about the change? Will it hurt or help the military, or perhaps have little effect? Give us a call, toll-free, 1-800-973-9800. First of all, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I know, gosh, what was it, just about a year ago before the President's State of the Union, you were on all sorts of national television channels because they expected that he would talk about this issue, and did. And some new news I hold in my hands here. It's hard to see, but these are your formal retirement orders.
Correct.
So what that means, in effect, is you are not going to be fired from the military. We know that already because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but this is it on paper.
Yes.
How did you feel when you received those, 2 days ago?
Tuesday. Yes, I got that email on Tuesday. It's a great sense of relief. It's still not over because my case remains active. I could still be dismissed any day, theoretically. But the fact that those are my orders, that they do have a date signed there by the Secretary of the Air Force, it is a good sign that maybe there is an end to this in sight.
You think they came in part because of this repeal? They came.
Absolutely, yeah. There had been a hold on my personnel file, and so once they released this hold, they were able to publish the orders. So.
As we mentioned in the introduction, though, Don't Ask, Don't Tell is still the policy of the land. Although it's been repealed by Congress and the President, it's still on the books until the certification process happens.
Correct.
So people in the military who are gay should not come out.
That's a great point to make. That yeah. Don't Ask, Don't Tell is still the law of the land until it's certified by the President, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and the Secretary of Defense. And then even after certification, there's a mandatory 60-day implementation period. So service members that are gay, that are out there, need to understand that they need to adhere by the rules of Don't Ask, Don't Tell until that's official, until it's officially signed off. If they have questions, they should contact Service Members Legal Defense Network, sldn.org. Still at risk. And they have counselors there if they have questions, but they should not come out. That is a very important point to make.
In the U.S. Congress, Representative Duncan Hunter has a piece of legislation that's introduced to slow down this certification process, potentially by having all 4 heads of the military services sign off, not just the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Your thoughts on that?
It just looks like a political move. I mean, obviously, repeal is signed by the President. It has been passed. You know, this may be a vote just like the healthcare vote yesterday, where they take it up, they pass it in the House, it'll go nowhere in the Senate, and the President won't sign it. So this looks like political grandstanding. along those lines too, you know, I was there for the Senate hearings with all of the chiefs of the Joint Chiefs. And a question was posed to all of them, do they think it's necessary for them to sign off? And they all said no, because they give their advice to the Secretary, they give their advice to the Chairman, and they believe that their advice is listened to and trusted. So this isn't necessary. This is just any kind of ploy that they can use to slow this down.
Let's talk a little bit about you. You're part of a military family. As I mentioned in the introduction, you've been in the Air Force since 1991. That's actually 2 years before Don't Ask, Don't Tell went into effect. But even then, being gay could get you kicked out of the military.
Yep,
I mean, this
absolutely.
is a long-standing policy. Talk about how you dealt with that in your life. Did you have kind of a double life, or did you just?
I don't know if I'd call it a double life, but
the president called living it a lie, living a lie.
Yeah, it definitely. You do that every day, and people. I think until some of the senators heard our personal stories, they didn't realize that you really do deal with it every day. I thought, you know, when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was enacted in '93, I was 2 years in the Air Force, and I remember hearing about it and saying, okay, that sounds fair. They're not going to ask me, and I'm not going to say anything. I will just keep my personal life very personal, very private, and I won't tell anybody about it, and everything will be fine. I think I can live with this. I never knew you could just be outed by anyone, by a civilian. And also, it sort of weighs on you over time, because you deal with little questions every day. What'd you do this weekend? Well, you know, I'm not allowed to say, well, I spent it with my partner. I'm not allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to tell the truth about what I did over the weekend. Somebody sees me skiing, they could say, hey, who were you with? I've had so many cousins over over the span of my career, where you have to make up.
Yeah,
exactly. You have to sort of make up who somebody is. So you're constantly living a lie every day. I was never in a relationship when I was deployed, but I had friends who did. You know, that was a huge strain, and it's a strain for every relationship, but these guys, they couldn't even talk about it. So if they were having a fight or problems, or I have one friend who his partner was 7-year partner was going into surgery, so he couldn't even talk to his friends about what that meant.
But did gay military members know other people who were gay that they could confide in and talk to about it, or did
it's very few. I mean, I probably had 5 or 6 friends through my whole career that, yeah, we did confide in each other. But again, when you're deployed, there are very few people you can talk to. You can't go to a chaplain, you can't go to a doctor. There's nobody you could talk to about it. So the strain was even greater for gay service members.
So at first when you were out, and you said you never expected it could be done by a third party, because of course Don't Ask, Don't Tell is directed towards the military individual and the military,
right,
not a third party. At first you didn't think you would fight on this. You would take an honorable discharge and, and go. And what changed your mind?
A lot of factors changed my mind, and that was my initial reaction was, I just wanted this all to go away quickly, quietly. I wanted an honorable discharge. I wanted to get a job, and I wanted to move on with life. I wasn't out to any family, any friends, so I didn't want anyone to know about this. I just, you know, wanted to move on. The first thing that changed my mind was literally a week after this happened. A friend of mine said, hey, you need to read about this major up in Washington State, Major Margaret Witt. She had won her case in the Ninth Circuit Court up there, and basically the court had ruled that they would send her case back to a lower court, and that they were going to require the Air Force to prove.
And here's Major Margaret Witt right now on TV with you. We're
Great.
showing a picture. Yeah.
That they were going to require the Air Force to prove that she was a detriment to good order, discipline, and morale. Because a lot of people don't understand this. The law is based on that statement, that the presence of a gay service member creates an unacceptable risk to good order, discipline, and morale. And the law is just based on that statement. No proof is necessary. It's written in the law. So anyway, she had won her first case, and I started to read up on her case, and that was the first glimmer of hope I got. So,
and her case, and we don't want to go into too much detail because
right,
we don't have time, but the Witt standard, as it's
right,
now called, pretty much says that you have to look at things on a case-by-case basis.
Exactly.
I mean, she was a nurse, I believe,
correct,
right? So, like,
decorated flight nurse,
getting rid of her, is her being gay somehow a detriment to her job? It's
right,
going to be case by case, and that really was a
right,
big crack.
And in my case, for a year while this was all going on, this investigation, the administrative procedures, the administrative board I had to go through, not one single person on the base or in my squadron knew anything about the nature of my case. So in my case, it was a perfect case to apply the Witt standard, because there's no way the Air Force could ever prove that I was a detriment to good order, discipline, morale, because no one knew about it.
But you decided to go public in quite a big way. You decided to go on national television on the Rachel Maddow Show, I'm sure in conjunction with your legal defense team. I'm going to show a clip in just a moment, but I assume you talked to your family first, yes?
Right before. Yeah, first I wanted to say that, so right away, even though I did want it to be quiet, I knew that that was the right thing to do, and I confided in a few of my friends, and when I told them, after I read about Witt, that I knew that was the right thing to do, we went forward, again, keeping it quiet, thinking we could win this, in an administrative discharge board. So it was April of the next year, so again, 11 months later, that's when I had my discharge board, and despite a complete lack of evidence, a complete lack of even putting anything forward to show that I personally was a detriment to good order, discipline, morale, the Air Force still recommended an honorable discharge. And at that point, I took about 2-3 weeks and just thought about that. And the more I thought about it, I always knew the right thing to do was to speak out, but I never thought I had the courage to do such a thing. So I contacted SLDN once again, and I said, when I said I wanted it, Service Members Legal Defense Network, and I said, I mentioned that I would testify before Congress. I mentioned that I had been thinking about speaking out. Well, I think I'm ready. And the reason was, I figured they took everything from me. They took my life, my career, my pension, potentially by taking my retirement away. They took everything, and the only thing they didn't take was my sense of right and wrong, my sense of honor. So at that point, I knew that I had to step forward. So SLDN had set up on a Thursday. They said, we've got you set up to fly to New York on Monday to go on the Rachel Maddow Show. So on Friday, I told them, hey, I just need you to know I have a big Catholic conservative Midwest family, and they don't even know I'm out yet, or that I'm gay. They don't know I'm getting thrown out of the military. They don't know anything about this. So I need to take the weekend to let my 7 brothers and sisters, my mom and my 16 nieces and nephews know about all this. And if any one of them has a problem with me speaking out and going on national TV and putting our family name out there, that I was not going to do it. And that includes just a 10-year-old nephew could have said, no, I don't want you to do it. So I let my family know over the weekend. I told them everything, and every single one of them said, you have to do this, and we're never more proud of you. So I got to call them back on Monday, said I'm in, my whole family's in, and we flew out there. So a day before the Rachel Maddow Show. That
must have been an emotional moment to have your family around you.
It absolutely was. It was incredible.
Let's take a look at Lieutenant Colonel Fehrenbach's first appearance on the Rachel Maddow Show.
It is in the shadow of these political promises left unfulfilled that Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach now faces his impending dismissal from the military, a decision that he challenged, but so far has lost. Joining us now for his first ever interview is Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, sir. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Rachel.
You've been in the Air Force for 18 years. What was your reaction when you found out that you're being investigated and then discharged?
I was devastated, absolutely devastated, Rachel.
So a short clip, and nervous?
Absolutely.
Nervous?
Even the flight out there, I kept going over my head, and this is another interesting point. I kept saying, I was sure I was going to do this, but I kept saying, what are you doing? You're about to go on national TV.
Like I said, an unplanned flight plan.
Exactly. What are you doing? Are you sure you want to do this? And interestingly enough, I was on a 777 where you could pick your own movies. I had not seen the movie Milk yet. And it was available, and I watched it, and I walked off that plane saying, there's no doubt in my mind, I know exactly what I'm doing.
And we're about to take some phone calls, but the reaction back home when you got home?
Thousands of messages, emails, phone calls, letters from perfect strangers, from people I've served with, from people all over the military, all the services, all ranks, and then most importantly, people I've served with and gone to combat with, basically saying that I don't care about any of this. I just care about your abilities, your professionalism. I would go to war with you tomorrow. That's what every one of the brothers and sisters that I flew in combat with said.
Great. Well, let's start with some phone calls. Let's talk to Kevin in Fruitland. Kevin, go ahead, please.
Yeah,
Kevin?
My comment is, can you hear me?
I sure can. Go ahead.
My comment, I'm a former NCO. I was a TAC-P in the Air Force. Then I served with the Scouts in the Army. And I understand that you've made this choice for your life, and I would say that it does create unorder and poor discipline and morale for soldiers in the field to see their commanding officers put themselves in a compromising position as you have, not for your choice of lifestyle, but for your choice of violating UCMJ.
Okay, let's get an answer to his concern. UCMJ stands for?
Uniform Code of Military Justice. I didn't violate the UCMJ. As a matter of fact, it could be argued that I didn't violate the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. The Air Force did not directly ask me, and I did not directly tell the Air Force anything. There was a false allegation made about me. I had to tell the truth, obviously, to clear my name, to prove that it was false, to exonerate myself. I did so, and then the Air Force took that statement and said, I admitted, that I was gay. So I didn't violate the UCMJ, and I didn't violate Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
There was a huge study done on this issue. President Obama and the military wanted a study, a survey done. 400,000 active duty and reserve members were surveyed. 115,000 responded on this issue of how they felt about a repeal happening. We've got some graphics to show on the screen basically summarizing that. And the main point from this Pentagon report was the risk of repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell to overall military effectiveness is low out of this 266-page survey. And then some more figures. When asked, about half of the people they surveyed said it would have no effect. 30%, however, said the repeal would have a negative effect. 15 to 20% said a positive effect. And then going on further, it was 40 to 60%, interestingly enough, in the Marine Corps, and the combat arms specialties had negative views about repeal. However, interestingly, also when asked, about 70% knew somebody that they believed was gay or lesbian that they served with, and of those people, 92% said unit cohesion was good, very good, or neither good nor poor. So some interesting responses there. I know you were a little bit skeptical of the survey at first being done, but it does show that there's 30% in there, so 30% of those surveyed, a third, who are having some concerns. Among them, military chaplains who worry that they will not be able to continue preaching sermons in which they feel quite strongly that homosexuality is a sin. How do you respond, first of all, to that issue, but also more broadly to other concerns? Well,
another thing the survey highlighted, as you mentioned, 70% overall said either negative or positive impact. Of those 30 that think it may have a negative impact, what they found was, you talked about the numbers that if they were exposed to someone, if they worked with someone, if they knew somebody was gay, those numbers jumped much higher. So that 30% probably has a lot to do with exposure. The Marine and Army combat arms, when you take that number that was 40 to 60% with a negative, when you ask them, have you worked with someone or do you know somebody who's gay, those numbers then jump to 85%. So again, it all
85% said it was
positive. Or those numbers jump up out of the 40 to 60 to 85%. So again, it's with exposure, and a lot of these fears come with fear of the unknown. And this goes back to society too. I mean, if you don't know anybody who's gay, you have these fears, you misunderstand it. Once you know someone and you put a person to that issue, it definitely changes your mind about that.
Well, what about the chaplains, though? Because I hear this a lot from people.
And that was an issue, and they addressed it in the report. Every chaplain I've known are two things. They're a chaplain, and they follow their religion, but you know what? They're also military officers, and they have a job to counsel everyone. So, there are Muslim chaplains deployed with us that I can go to and be counseled.
Even though you don't,
yeah, right.
Not
I mean,
Islam.
We don't agree on faith. I can go to a Protestant chaplain. I'm Catholic. We may not agree on certain matters of faith, but if I need counseling, they're professional military officers, just like everyone else, and that comes first. Every chaplain I've ever known, their military duties have come first.
Okay, let's get a call in from Robert in Moscow, Idaho. Robert, go ahead, please.
Timing's perfect. But the problem is that because you think that they're military first, that means that they will be the persons who are disciplined, say, if they preach through the scripture parts that prohibit homosexuality. If they preach through these parts of the Bible, they're the ones that are at risk of being disciplined because you are preaching something that is now being protected.
Thank you for your call. As I understand it in the report, the authors of this report made it quite clear that First Amendment privileges of chaplains would not be eroded, that they could still continue to give their sermons and not be disciplined in any way for their political or
I was
moral
discussing
points of
more
view.
with the counseling part, that they already counsel people of other faiths. When they go into their sermon, into their private religious denominational service, they can say whatever they want by the
And
First
Robert,
Amendment.
if you're still listening, this report we have linked to our website, and there's several sections on the chaplain issue, which are very interesting to read, and recommendations made by the report authors to make sure that there are protections in there for chaplains. People are also concerned about sharing bathrooms, sharing barracks. You know, what if they find out now that it's an open situation? Before, you know, maybe somebody thought somebody was gay, but they didn't know. Now if they know, they might be uncomfortable, more uncomfortable, might request a barracks change.
Yeah, and they do address it in the report. Again, a couple things on that. First of all, we're already doing that. We're already deployed with Canadian, Brits, Aussies, Israelis in Afghanistan, in Iraq right now. When I was deployed, I lived with Canadians, Brits, Aussies. They all have open service. The issue didn't even come up. It's a non-issue because, especially in combat, you're only concerned about combat. You're thinking about your next meal, your next mission. You're thinking about staying alive. Those are you're thinking about your family back home. Those are way more important issues.
And as I understand from reading the report, if you want to talk to your supervisor about changing your barracks, you can.
Right. They'll deal with those on a case-by-case basis, and I think those will be minimal.
What about benefits? People are concerned, and there is a number figure. You know, there's a potential cost to this. Because of the Defense of Marriage Act, which is a federal act, certain benefits do not accrue to gay partners of military, but certain will. For instance, if you want to designate somebody to be at your side at the hospital, and it's your gay partner, you can. People are worried about this kind of cracking open something so that there'll be more and more benefits.
No, I mean, that's just not, they again took a large part of the survey to talk about benefits. Like you mentioned, because if DOMA still exists, the military will follow DOMA until it goes away, and until
Defense of Marriage Act.
Right, Defense of Marriage Act, until spouses can be married. And then again, they'll probably have to address those a case-by-case basis because different states may have different laws. So for now, you know, we are talking about just the other federal employment law that just changed, that President Obama just enacted, and it became effective the other day, is that hospital visitation, those are things, and SGLI or insurance benefits, death notification, things like that, where we can designate a certain person. So again, not much changes. We're just going to designate a loved one just as we would anyone in our family.
And in terms of harassment, you are not, this report recommends not adding sexual orientation as a protected class there. Just working through the current system that exists if you feel like you're being harassed for your sexual orientation.
Discrimination and harassment are already in all of our policies. It's already in the UCMJ. You're already not allowed to discriminate against gays or to make slurs in the military. So again, that won't change much.
Let's take a call from Elizabeth in Boise. Elizabeth, go ahead, please.
Hi, I just wanted to say that you've done an outstanding job of representing the military, a particular situation, so well, and a lot of people are very proud of you. The other thing I was going to ask is, you live in Boise. It's not exactly a liberal bastion, but how have your neighbors reacted to you and your friends and coworkers and people you interact with, because you've become, you know, well known for this particular issue?
Yeah, in fact, we were just discussing that before we came on. Right, I thought this was a red state, but I've, again, got nothing but support. It's just like the military support I've gotten. I get stopped in the grocery store, at the gym, on the Greenbelt all the time, or just out in a restaurant or bar, and people just saying thanks, and I've got nothing but support from the local community as well.
So you believe strongly this will not hurt military security or readiness?
I don't need a study to tell me that, because I live it every day. I've lived it for the last year and a half. I know that it won't hurt because, you know, I've been out in my squadron for a year and a half now, almost 2 years, and it has had zero negative effect. In fact, it's had a positive effect, I think, on my squadron, on my unit, on the fighter wing out at Mountain Home. The mission has continued.
You were at some very important events, including watching the vote being taken during in the Senate. Was that a pins and needles moment for you? Did you think it would pass?
We knew, and I had a couple discussions with Senator Lieberman, and he kept assuring me we've got more than 60 votes. I'll tell you what, 2 weeks before, when the Senate first had the vote for cloture, the second vote for cloture, and it failed, I was probably at my lowest low. I actually wrote a good friend and said, I think for the first time after my entire life and serving my country for 19 years, it's the first time I had lost faith in my country, because we knew we had more than 60 votes of people who knew, that Don't Ask, Don't Tell was wrong, and they knew that they would vote against it, but they still found procedural reasons and parliamentary reasons to vote against it. And I thought, if you know something's wrong, you just vote that way. You vote your conscience, and there are a couple senators that didn't do that. So I was definitely at a low point. So when I sat in the chamber and I had the opportunity to fly out for this, because I had a feeling, that's why I flew out that Friday, it was very surreal, because I couldn't believe it was happening. And then, interestingly enough, I had been trying to lobby or speak to my senator from Ohio, Senator Voinovich, and I was counting the votes in my hands, and as soon as I heard his yay, that's where I realized we had passed 61. And that's where I sort of got emotional there right in the Senate chamber, but it was amazing to see the vote.
This is the vote count here.
The nays 31. The motion to concur in the House amendment to Senate amendment to House Resolution 2965 is adopted.
So, emotional time.
Absolutely.
Still emotional for you here as you watch,
Definitely.
I can see. And then very briefly, let's show a clip from President Obama as he signed the legislation. And actually, we can see you standing up and clapping.
For we are not a nation that says, don't ask, don't tell. We are a nation that says, out of many, we are one. We are a nation that welcomes the service of every patriot. We are a nation that believes that all men and women are created equal. Those are the ideals that generations have fought for. Those are the ideals that we uphold today. And now it is my honor to sign this bill into law.
And because you have a bald pate, you're easy to pick out there. You can see yourself standing up. But not only were you there, but you're going to get one of the pens that was used by Speaker Pelosi to sign this legislation. So part of history. You're part of history. There are still a lot of people, though, that are very, very nervous about this. What would you say to them?
Hold tight. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Once certification happens and implementation.
I'm talking about the opposition.
Oh, they will see, as has been my experience, that there will be no negative impact. In fact, it will be a positive impact. Each time our nation has faced a major social change like this, it's become stronger. The military's become stronger, and the country's become stronger. And
what did you learn about yourself going through this?
I think I might be stronger than I thought I was.
You might be.
Not sure.
Well,
I
for
think
a fighter pilot
I had a lot
to
of
say
help. I think I had a lot of help. It wasn't just me.
And what's next for you?
I don't know. I mean, I've got retirement coming up the end of September. 41.
Yeah,
so retirement at the end of September. I'll probably start to write things down and perhaps write a book just from all these experiences the last 2.5 years, and we'll see what opportunities open up. I'd like to stay involved in equality issues for LGBT, and we'll see if those opportunities are there when I retire.
Well, thank you for appearing on Dialogue. You've been listening to Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach of Mountain Home Air Force Base. He is involved in the Don't Ask, Don't Tell issue. This has been Dialogue. I hope you join us same time next week. For those of you staying on the line, hold tight and we'll get you on the web extra.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho. To order a copy of this program from Idaho Public Television, call our toll-free number or visit us on the World Wide Web